The chamber was so vast that clouds formed near its ceiling. Lieutenant David Palmer stood at the entrance, his dress uniform feeling suddenly inadequate against the weight of 10,000 alien eyes. The Galactic Council headquarters stretched before him like a cathedral built by gods, with floating platforms carrying representatives from species humanity had never imagined could exist. This was the moment Earth had waited 40 years to witness. First contact had happened 4 decades ago, and humanity had spent every day since then clawing its way toward this invitation. The right to stand before the Council, the right to be heard. David was 26 years old. He was not supposed to be here. Ambassador Catherine Moore was supposed to lead the delegation, but her shuttle had suffered an unexpected malfunction 3 hours ago. David, her junior attach, was the only human who made it to the station on time. He walked forward. The platform beneath his feet hummed with energy he did not understand. Around him, creatures of every shape watched with expressions he could not read. Some had too many eyes. Some had none. Some floated in liquid spheres. Others existed as nothing more than controlled light. The High Counselor sat at the center of the chamber on a throne carved from a dead star. His name was Varric, and his species had ruled this council for 6,000 years. He was 12 feet tall, covered in scales that shifted color with his mood, and his voice carried the weight of absolute authority. "The human delegation may approach," Varric announced. His words translated automatically through devices. Embedded in the chamber walls. David walked alone down the central pathway. Every step echoed. He could feel his heart pounding against his ribs. The fate of 8 billion people rested on whatever he said in the next few minutes. He stopped at the designated circle and bowed his head respectfully. "High Counselor, honored representatives, I am Lieutenant David Palmer of Earth. I speak for humanity today." A ripple of amusement passed through the chamber. David heard clicking sounds that might have been laughter. Whispers in languages no human had ever learned. "A child," someone said loud enough for the translators to catch. "They sent a child." Varric raised one massive hand, and silence fell instantly. "Lieutenant Palmer, your species has petitioned for observer status in this council. You understand what this means?" "Yes, High Counselor. Observer status grants humanity the right to witness council proceedings, to trade with member species, and to receive protection under galactic law. And what does humanity offer in return?" David had memorized this answer. Ambassador Moore had drilled it into him 100 times. Earth offers its art, its music, its literature. We offer our unique perspective as a young species. We offer friendship and cooperation. The laughter this time was not hidden. It rolled through the chamber like thunder. David stood still, keeping his face neutral, even as his cheeks burned. A new voice cut through the noise. It was deep and sharp, like metal grinding against stone. "Friendship? Cooperation?" The speaker rose from a platform near the front. He was a Vorkon, one of the dominant military species in the galaxy. His name was Commander Threll, and he stood 9 feet tall, his body covered in natural armor that could deflect energy weapons. His 4 arms were crossed over his chest, and his yellow eyes burned with contempt. "The humans offer nothing," Threll declared. "They crawled out of their mud barely yesterday. They have no fleet worth mentioning, no technology we need, no resources we cannot take. They are insects begging for scraps at our table." David remained silent. Protocol demanded he wait for the High Counselor to respond, but Threll was not finished. He stepped off his platform and dropped to the main floor, landing with a boom that shook the chamber. He walked toward David with slow, deliberate steps. "I have studied your species," Threll continued. "You are weak. Your bones break easily. Your skin tears like paper. You die from temperature changes, It would not bother our younglings. You are the weakest intelligent species ever discovered. He stopped 3 feet from David and leaned down until his face was inches away. His breath smelled like copper and smoke. You do not belong here, insect. Go back to your mud planet and wait for a stronger species to claim you. The chamber watched in silence. This was not unusual. The strong dominated the weak. That was the natural order of the galaxy. David looked up at the massive warrior. His voice was calm when he spoke. Commander Threll, I respectfully ask that you withdraw your insult. Diplomatic protocol requires that all species be treated with basic dignity during council proceedings. Threll laughed. The sound was horrible, like bones cracking. Protocol? You dare speak to me of protocol? His upper right hand moved faster than David could react. The slap caught him across the face with enough force to lift him off his feet. David flew backward 6 feet and crashed into a pillar. He felt his jaw crack. Blood filled his mouth. 3 of his teeth scattered across the polished floor. The chamber remained silent. A few species looked away. Most watched with the casual interest of predators, observing prey. David lay on the ground for a long moment. Pain radiated through his skull. His vision blurred. He could hear his own heartbeat, slow and steady despite everything. Then he pushed himself up, first to his knees, then to his feet. He swayed but did not fall. Blood dripped from his split lip. His jaw hung at an angle that should have made speech impossible. But David Palmer looked directly at Commander Threll and smiled. You have 6 seconds, he said. His voice was distorted but clear. Threll tilted his head. 6 seconds until what, insect? David spit blood onto the floor. Until my ambassador finds out what you did. The Vorkon warrior laughed again. Your ambassador? The female whose shuttle broke? What will she do? File a complaint? The chamber doors exploded inward. Every head turned. Every eye focused on the entrance. The metal doors, each weighing several tons, had been blasted off their hinges, and now lay twisted on the floor. Ambassador Catherine Moore stood in the doorway. She was a small woman, barely 5.5 feet tall, with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. She looked like someone's grandmother. Behind her stood 4 figures in armor, so black it seemed to absorb light. They carried no visible weapons. They did not move. They did not speak. They simply waited. Moore's eyes swept the chamber until they found David. She saw the blood. She saw his broken jaw. She saw his teeth on the floor. Her expression did not change. But something in the air shifted. A pressure that had not existed a moment ago now filled the chamber. Several smaller species actually fled their platforms. Moore walked forward. Her footsteps were silent. The 4 armored figures followed. She stopped in front of Commander Threll and looked up at him. The size difference was almost comical. She barely reached his chest. Which hand did you use? She asked. Her voice was quiet, almost gentle. Threll sneered. My upper right. Would you like me to demonstrate on you as well? Moore nodded slowly. She turned to face the High Counselor. I invoke Article 7 of the Galactic Charter, the right of retribution. Humanity demands satisfaction. The chamber erupted in chaos. Species screamed at each other. Platforms collided. The High Counselor slammed his fist against his throne, demanding order. Threll stood frozen. Article 7 had not been invoked in 300 years. It granted an aggrieved species the right to immediate combat. Ship against ship. Winner take all. Moore turned back to face him. For the first time, she smiled. You should not have touched my boy, Commander. You really should not have touched my boy. David Palmer watched through swollen eyes as his ambassador declared war on the most powerful military species in the galaxy. And somewhere deep inside him, past the pain and the blood, he felt something strange. He felt sorry for the Vorkon. They had no idea. What they had awakened. The chaos in the council chamber lasted exactly 12 seconds. Then High Counselor Varric raised both hands, and silence crashed down like a physical force. His scales had shifted to a deep crimson, a color that meant anger in his species. "Ambassador Moore," he said, his voice cutting through the tension. "You invoke Article 7. Do you understand what this means?" Catherine Moore stood with her hands clasped behind her back. The 4 armored figures had not moved from their positions. They might have been statues if not for the occasional turn of their helmeted heads. "I understand perfectly, High Counselor. Article 7 grants humanity the right to demand immediate satisfaction for an unprovoked assault on our representative." Commander Threll struck Lieutenant Palmer without justification. "Under galactic law, we may challenge him to combat." Varric leaned forward. "Article 7 has not been invoked in 300 years. The last species to use it was destroyed within a week. I am aware of the history." A murmur spread through the chamber. Species exchanged glances. Some looked amused. Others looked confused. A few, very few, looked concerned. Commander Threll stepped forward. His forearms were spread wide, displaying the natural weapons built into his body. Bone blades extended from his forearms. His chest plates thickened visibly. "I accept the challenge," he declared. "Let the humans send their mightiest warrior. I will crush them and mount their skull in my trophy hall." Moore did not look at him. She kept her eyes on the High Counselor. "The terms of Article 7 state that the challenged party selects the combat arena. The challenger selects the warrior." Threll laughed. "Then I choose ship combat. My flagship, the Iron Claw, against whatever scrap metal the humans can provide. We fight at the dead moon of Helix Prime in 1 hour." "Acceptable," Moore said. She finally turned to face Threll. "But, Commander, I must correct your assumption. You did not challenge humanity. You assaulted a member of my delegation. Under human law, that makes this personal." She gestured to one of the armored figures. "Captain Romang Holt, please step forward." One of the black armored soldiers moved. He was tall, perhaps 6 feet, but seemed small compared to the Vorkon. He removed his helmet slowly. The face beneath was human. A man in his middle years, with short gray hair and eyes that held no emotion whatsoever. Scars crossed his cheeks and forehead, marks of battles fought in places no one in this chamber could imagine. "Captain Holt will represent humanity in this challenge," Moore announced. "He commands our vessel, the Silent Edge." Threll looked at the human captain with open contempt. "This is your champion? This aging creature? I expected at least a warrior." "This looks like a teacher." Holt spoke for the first time. His voice was soft, almost gentle. "I was a teacher once. I taught young soldiers how to survive." "And did they survive?" Holt smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "No, but they made our enemies pay for every death. That is what I taught them." Something flickered in Threll's eyes. Not fear, not yet, but perhaps the first seed of doubt. Varric stood from his throne. "The challenge is accepted. Both parties will proceed to the combat arena. The Council will observe. May the strongest species prevail." The chamber began to empty. Species flooded toward viewing platforms that would give them the best angle on the coming battle. Bets were placed openly. The odds favored Threll at 50-1. David Palmer was taken to a medical bay by 2 of the armored soldiers. His jaw was already being reconstructed by human nanotechnology that moved through his bloodstream like microscopic surgeons. He would be healed within the hour. Moore walked beside Captain Holt as they headed toward the docking bay. "Ramang." No games. End this quickly. Catherine, you know I cannot promise that. Why not? Holt stopped walking. He looked at her with those empty eyes. Because I want them to see. I want every species in this galaxy to understand what happens when you touch one of ours. Quick victories do not send messages. Devastation does. Moore studied his face for a long moment. The council will be watching. Good. Let them watch. Let them learn. They continued walking. Behind them, a small alien diplomat hurried to catch up. His name was Rix, and he belonged to a species called the Velians. They were scholars and historians, dedicated to recording every significant event in galactic history. Ambassador Moore, Rix called out. His voice was high and nervous. Please, I must speak with you. Moore slowed but did not stop. Walk with us, Counselor Rix. The Velian fell into step beside her. His 6 legs moved rapidly to keep pace. Ambassador, I have studied your species for 30 years. I have read every document you have shared with the Council. I have analyzed your history, your wars, your development. And what have you concluded? Rix's skin shifted colors, a sign of extreme stress in his species. I have concluded that something is very wrong. The data does not match. Your species should not have developed faster than light travel. Your population numbers do not add up. Your technological progression follows no logical pattern. Moore smiled slightly. Perhaps we are simply lucky. No, that is not it. Rix grabbed her arm, forcing her to stop. His eyes were wide with something close to terror. Ambassador, I ran projections. Based on your rate of development, you should be 5,000 years behind the Vorkon. Instead, you achieved space travel within 4 decades of discovering it. That is impossible. Unless what, Counselor? Rix lowered his voice to a whisper. Unless you were hiding your true capabilities. Unless you wanted us to think you were weak. Moore gently removed his hand from her arm. Counselor Rix, I appreciate your concern. But right now, I have a war to win. She walked away. Holt followed. Rix stood frozen in the corridor, his mind racing through implications that terrified him. The Silent Edge was waiting in docking Bay 7. It was small, sleek, and completely black. It had no visible weapons, no shield generators, no engine exhausts. It looked less like a warship and more like a shadow, given physical form. Threll's flagship was already visible through the viewport. The Iron Claw was a monster of a vessel, bristling with weapons. Plasma cannons lined its hull. Missile pods clustered around its engines. It had 3,000 crew and enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The Silent Edge had a crew of 12. Holt boarded his ship and took his position on the bridge. His crew moved with silent efficiency, preparing for combat. They did not speak. They did not need to. Captain, his first officer said, the Vorkon vessel is powering weapons. Let them. They are broadcasting on all channels. Commander Threll is calling you a coward. Holt leaned back in his chair. He will not be calling me anything soon. Navigation, set course for the combat arena. Take us in slow. Let them think we are afraid. The Silent Edge detached from Helix Prime and began its journey toward the dead moon. Behind it, 1,000 alien vessels followed at safe distances, eager to witness the destruction of humanity's hopes. None of them noticed the ripple in space near the system's star. None of them detected the 300 warships that waited in dimensional fold. Invisible to every scanner in the known galaxy. Admiral Patricia Stone stood on the bridge of the human flagship Prometheus, watching the data feeds from the arena. Her face was calm, but her hands gripped the armrests of her chair with white-knuckled intensity. All ships report ready, her communications officer announced. Hold position. Do not reveal yourselves unless I give the order. Yes, Admiral. Stone watched the tiny dot of the Silent Edge approach the massive bulk of the Iron Claw. She had served with Romong Holt for 40 years. She had seen him do impossible things, but this was different. This was public. This would change everything. She opened a private channel to Earth. The face of General Thomas Webb appeared on her screen. He was Lieutenant Palmer's father, and his expression was carved from stone. "Admiral, is my son safe? He is being treated. He will recover fully." "And the Vorkon who hurt him?" Stone smiled grimly. "He is about to learn why humanity never picked fights during our first 40 years in space. He is about to learn what we were really doing while everyone thought we were weak." On the dead moon of Helix Prime, the Iron Claw powered its weapons to maximum. Commander Thrall stood on his bridge, surrounded by his officers, ready to destroy the pathetic human vessel. The Silent Edge drifted to a stop 1,000 meters away. It powered nothing. It harmed nothing. It simply waited. Thrall opened a broadcast channel. "Human vessel, surrender now, and I will make your deaths quick. Resist, and I will tear your ship apart piece by piece." Captain Holt's voice came back, calm and steady. "Commander Thrall, I want you to remember this moment. I want you to remember that we gave you a chance to walk away." Thrall laughed. "Fire all weapons." The Iron Claw erupted in light and fury. Every weapon fired simultaneously. Plasma bolts, missiles, kinetic rounds. Enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. The barrage struck the Silent Edge dead center and passed through it like it was not there. Thrall's laughter died in his throat. "What? What is this?" "Sensors. Report." His officers scrambled at their stations. "Commander, the human ship is not there. It is not anywhere. We cannot target what does not exist in our dimension." Thrall stared at the view screen. The Silent Edge hung motionless, completely undamaged. As he watched, it began to move forward. Fire again. They fired again. Same result. The weapons passed through nothing. The Silent Edge stopped 50 meters from the Iron Claw's hull. Captain Holt's voice broadcast one final time. "Now you will learn, Commander. Now everyone will learn." The Silent Edge flickered and split into 100 identical copies, surrounding the Vorkon flagship in a perfect sphere of black ships. And then they opened fire. The weapon that destroyed the Iron Claw had no name. Human scientists simply called it the collapse. It worked by focusing gravitational energy into beams so concentrated they could crush matter at the molecular level. The 100 copies of the Silent Edge fired simultaneously. The beams converged on the Vorkon flagship from every direction. There was no escape. There was nowhere to run. The first section to die was the weapons array. The plasma cannons folded inward like paper being crumpled by an invisible hand. Crew members in that section had exactly half a second to understand what was happening before the gravity compression reduced them to particles smaller than atoms. But they did not die. Flashes of light appeared throughout the Iron Claw. Teleportation signatures. Humans were boarding the ship, pulling Vorkon crew members out of danger zones and depositing them in escape pods that launched automatically. Commander Thrall stood on his bridge, watching his mighty vessel die around him. He could not move. He could not speak. He could only watch as section after section crumpled and collapsed, as his crew vanished in flashes of white light, as everything he knew about warfare proved meaningless. Captain Holt's voice echoed through the dying ship. "We are not murderers, Commander. We could kill every being on your vessel in seconds. Instead, we are saving them. We want them to live. We want them to tell others what they saw today." The bridge shook violently. Thrall fell to his knees. Around him, his officers disappeared one by one, teleported to safety. "Why?" Thrall roared at the ceiling. "Why save us? We are your enemies. Because enemies can become friends. Because death is permanent, but pride is not. Because humanity learned long ago that the wars you win with mercy last longer than the wars you win with blood. The bridge began to collapse. Metal groaned and twisted. The view screen shattered. Threll felt the teleportation beam grab him. One moment he was on his dying ship. The next, he was floating in an escape pod, watching through a tiny window as the iron claw folded into itself and became nothing more than a ball of compressed metal the size of a fist. 3,000 crew members saved. One flagship destroyed. 0 human casualties. The watching species fell silent. The bets were forgotten. The laughter stopped. In the council chamber, High Counselor Varric gripped his throne with enough force to crack the ancient stone. His scales had gone pale, a color that meant fear in his species. What are they? He whispered to no one. What have they been hiding? Counselor Rix stood nearby, his prediction confirmed in the worst possible way. I tried to warn them, he said quietly. I tried to tell them the numbers did not add up. On Helix Prime, Ambassador Moore watched the battle's end from a viewing platform. David Palmer stood beside her, his jaw fully healed, his face showing no sign of the injury he had suffered less than 2 hours ago. It is done, Moore said. No, David replied. It is just beginning. The Vorkhan will not accept this. Their pride will demand revenge. Moore nodded slowly. I know. That is why we needed this victory to be absolute. We needed them to understand that revenge is not an option. Will they understand? Moore turned to face her young attach. Her eyes held a weight that made her look ancient, despite her small frame. Some will. Some will see the mercy we showed and recognize that we could have chosen destruction. They will remember that we saved their people while killing their ship. And they will wonder why. Why did we? Because killing is easy, David. Building alliances is hard. We have spent 40 years preparing for this moment. Not preparing for war. Preparing for peace. But peace only works when everyone understands the alternative. A communication alert chimed. Moore touched her earpiece and listened. Her expression did not change, but David saw something shift in her posture. What is it? The Vorkhan Supreme Chancellor is demanding an emergency council session. He wants to declare humanity an enemy of the galaxy. David felt his stomach tighten. Can he do that? He can try. But he is about to learn something that his commander learned the hard way. We have more surprises. The emergency session convened within the hour. The council chamber was packed beyond capacity. Species that had not attended meetings in centuries sent representatives. Everyone wanted to witness what would happen next. Supreme Chancellor Koth of the Vorkhan Empire stood at the center of the chamber. He was even larger than Commander Threll, his body covered in ceremonial armor that had been worn by his ancestors for 10,000 years. His voice boomed through the space like controlled thunder. Humanity has committed an act of war against the Vorkhan Empire. They have destroyed one of our sacred vessels. They have humiliated our commander. They have demonstrated weapons that violate every treaty of the Galactic Council. He pointed at Ambassador Moore, who stood calmly on the human platform. I demand that this species be declared hostile. I demand that their planet be placed under quarantine. I demand that they surrender their weapons technology or face the combined might of every fleet in this galaxy. The chamber erupted in voices. Some supported Koth. Others remained silent. A few, very few, spoke in humanity's defense. High Counselor Varric raised his hand for silence. Ambassador Moore, you will respond to these accusations. Moore stepped forward. She looked small against the vastness of the chamber, but her voice carried clearly. Supreme Chancellor Koth accuses humanity of committing an act of war. I must correct him. Humanity responded to an act of war. His commander struck our representative without provocation. We invoked a legal right that is written into the Galactic Charter. We won a legal challenge through legal means. You used illegal weapons, Koth roared. Show me the law that prohibits our weapons. You cannot, because no law exists. The treaties ban weapons of mass destruction. Our gravity technology is not that. It is precision. It is controlled. We did not destroy your commander's ship because we wanted to. We destroyed it because he chose to fight instead of apologize. Moore paused and looked around the chamber. And we saved every single member of his crew. 3,000 Vorkon soldiers are alive right now because we chose to spare them. How many species in this chamber would have done the same? Silence answered her question. Koth's scales darkened with rage. Pretty words from a pretty insect. But words will not save you. I have 3,000 warships ready to reduce your planet to glass. Surrender now, or watch your species become extinct. Moore smiled. It was a cold expression that did not reach her eyes. Supreme Chancellor, before you make threats, you should check your sensors. Koth hesitated. He gestured to one of his aides, who checked a portable scanner. The aide's face went pale. He whispered something in Koth's ear. The Supreme Chancellor's expression shifted from rage to confusion to something that looked almost like fear. That is impossible. He said, nothing is impossible for humanity. We have simply been patient. Across the galaxy, in the Vorkon home system, sensor stations detected the impossible. 1,200 human warships had appeared from nowhere. They surrounded the Vorkon homeworld in a perfect sphere, each ship holding position with weapons powered, but not armed. They had been there for less than a minute. They had traveled across 300 light years without being detected. They had bypassed every defense, every scanner, every patrol fleet. Admiral Patricia Stone's voice broadcast on every Vorkon channel. Supreme Chancellor Koth, humanity does not want war. We have never wanted war. But we will not be bullied. We will not be threatened. And we will not apologize for defending our own. She paused. Your homeworld is currently surrounded by enough firepower to reduce it to asteroids. We have no intention of firing. We simply wanted you to understand the situation clearly. Humanity is not your enemy. But we could be. The choice is yours. In the council chamber, Koth stood frozen. His fleet was 300 light years away. His homeworld was defenseless. 8 billion Vorkon civilians were one command away from extinction. And the humans were offering mercy. Moore spoke again. Supreme Chancellor, we did not reveal our strength to threaten you. We revealed it so that you would know the truth. We could have conquered this galaxy years ago. We chose not to. We chose to grow quietly, to watch, to learn, to prepare. Not for war. For something else. Koth found his voice. Prepare for what? Before Moore could answer, every light in the chamber flickered. Every screen, every holographic display, every communication device showed the same image. It came from the edge of the galaxy, from the vast empty space between stars. Something was moving there. Something old. Something hungry, and it was waking up. Moore's voice cut through the rising panic. That is what we have been preparing for, Supreme Chancellor. That is why humanity never picked fights. That is why we hid our strength. Because there are worse things in this universe than pride and rivalry. And one of them is about to arrive. The chamber fell into terrified silence as the image grew clearer. It was not a ship. It was not a fleet. It was something that defied description. Something that made the mightiest warship look like a toy. And it was heading straight for the galaxy. The image earned itself into the minds of every being in the council chamber. It was not a creature. It was not a machine. It was something that existed between definitions. A mass of darkness that consumed light itself, stretching across millions of miles of empty space. High Counselor Varric rose from his throne. His scales had gone completely white, a color his species only showed when facing extinction. "What is that thing?" Ambassador Moore stepped forward. The fear in the chamber was thick enough to taste, but her voice remained steady. "We call it the Devourer. Our scientists have studied it for 37 years. We first detected it during our initial faster-than-light experiments." 37 years? Varek's voice cracked. "You have known about this for 37 years, and said nothing? Would you have believed us? We were insects, remember? We were mud creatures who crawled out of our primitive planet. If we had warned you, you would have laughed. You would have called us liars. You would have demanded proof that we could not provide without revealing our true capabilities." Moore gestured to the image still displayed on every screen. "So we prepared. Quietly, secretly, we built our fleet. We developed our technology. We waited for the moment when the galaxy would finally listen." Supreme Chancellor Koth had gone silent. His fleet surrounded his homeworld. His pride lay in ruins. And now something worse than humanity threatened everything he knew. "What does it want?" he asked. His voice had lost its thunder. He sounded like what he truly was, a frightened leader facing something beyond his understanding. "It wants to feed," Moore replied. "The Devourer consumes civilizations, not just their planet. Their histories, their memories, their very existence. When it finishes with a species, nothing remains. No records, no ruins, no evidence that they ever lived." A new voice spoke. It came from everywhere and nowhere, echoing through the chamber with a weight that pressed against every mind. "She speaks the truth." Every eye turned to the source. At the back of the chamber, a platform that had remained empty for 2,000 years began to glow. A shape materialized there, a being of pure light that shifted and flowed like a living aurora. Consular Rix gasped. "The Oracle. The Oracle is speaking." The Oracle was the oldest intelligence in the galaxy. It had existed before the first species achieved space travel. It had watched empires rise and fall. It had remained silent for millennia, observing without interfering. "I have waited for this moment," the Oracle said. "I have watched humanity since they first looked up at their stars and wondered what lay beyond. I have seen what they truly are." Varek found his voice. "What are they? What are the humans?" The Oracle's form pulsed with colors that had no names. "They are not what you think. They are not a young species finding their way in an old galaxy. They are weapons. They are guardians. They were placed on their world millions of years ago by the last civilization that faced the Devourer." The chamber erupted in chaos. Species screamed questions. Some fled their platforms. Others simply stared at the humans with new eyes. Moore raised her hand, and somehow, impossibly, the noise stopped. "The Oracle speaks a truth we only discovered recently ourselves. Our DNA carries markers that should not exist. Our evolution followed paths that defy probability. We were designed to fight. We were designed to survive. We were designed to be ready when this moment came." She looked directly at Koth. "Supreme Chancellor, you asked what humanity has been preparing for. This is your answer. We have been preparing to lead the defense of this galaxy against something that has destroyed countless civilizations before us. We did not hide our strength because we feared you. We hid it because we needed you to reveal your true nature first." Koth's eyes narrowed. "Our true nature? The Vorkon are warriors, the greatest warriors in this galaxy. We needed to know if you would fight alongside others or only for yourselves. When you struck my attach, you showed us aggression. When you demanded war, you showed us pride. But now, facing something that threatens everything, we will see what you really are." The Oracle spoke again. "I have records of the last war against the Devourer. It happened before this galaxy had intelligent life. A species from another place fought it and won, but barely. They sacrificed everything to push it back into the void between galaxies. Before they died, they seeded worlds with their genetic material, hoping that one day new defenders would arise. Earth was one of those worlds, Moore continued. Humanity is what grew from those seeds. We carry the memories of the defenders in our blood, fragments of knowledge that unlock as we need them. That is why our technology advanced so quickly. We were remembering, not inventing. Lieutenant David Palmer stepped forward. His jaw was healed, but the memory of the slap remained fresh. I did not understand why I felt no fear when Commander Thrall hit me. Now I know. Something inside me recognized him as a potential ally, not a true enemy. Something knew this moment would come. Thrall himself had been watching from a medical platform where he had been placed after his rescue. His armor was gone. His pride was shattered. But something else had replaced it. He stood. Every eye turned to him. The commander who had struck a human. The warrior who had lost everything. I have spent my entire life believing strength was the only thing that mattered, Thrall said. His voice was rough, changed by something deeper than vocal damage. I hit the human because he was weak. Because I could. Because no one would stop me. He walked to the central floor, passing species who shrank from him, until he stood before David Palmer. I was wrong. Thrall dropped to one knee. In Vorkon culture, this was the ultimate submission. No commander had knelt to another species in recorded history. You could have killed me. You could have killed my crew. Instead, you saved us. You gave us mercy when we offered none. I do not understand your species, but I understand honor. And you have shown more honor in one battle than I have shown in my entire life. He looked up at David. I cannot undo what I did to you, but I can offer what I have. My fleet, my warriors, my life. Use them against this enemy, and I will fight beside you until my last breath. David looked at Ambassador Moore. She nodded slightly. He reached down and offered his hand to Thrall. We do not want servants. We want allies. Stand up, Commander. There is work to do. Thrall took his hand and rose. For the first time in galactic history, a human and a Vorkon stood together as equals. The Oracle's light intensified. This is what the original defenders hoped for. Not a single species fighting alone, but a galaxy united against darkness. The Devourer consumes civilizations because they fight separately. It fears what happens when they fight together. Varek stepped down from his throne. It was unprecedented. The High Counselor had never left his seat during an active session. What do you need from us? He asked Moore. What do you need from all of us? Moore looked around the chamber. She saw fear. She saw confusion. But she also saw something else. Hope. We need you to trust us. We need you to share your technologies, your ships, your warriors. We need every species in this galaxy to stop fighting each other and start fighting together. The Devourer will arrive in months, not years. When it comes, there will be no second chances. Koff spoke. His voice had changed too. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something harder and stronger. The Vorkon fleet will join you. Every ship, every soldier. We have spent millennia perfecting war. Let us use that perfection for something that matters. One by one, other species added their voices. The Velians offered their knowledge. The Crystallans offered their energy technology. The hive minds offered their billions of workers. Species that had been enemies for centuries set aside their hatred. More watched it happen. 40 years of patience. 40 years of pretending to be weak. 40 years of planning for this exact moment. And it was finally working. Her communicator buzzed. She stepped aside and touched her earpiece. Admiral Stone's voice came through. Ambassador, we have detected movement from the Devourer. It is accelerating. Our timeline just got shorter. How much shorter? 3 months. Maybe less. Catherine, this thing knows we are uniting. It is coming faster because it is afraid. For the first time in its existence, it faces something that might stop it. Moore looked at the chamber full of allies. Enemies becoming friends. Strangers becoming brothers. A galaxy waking up to fight together. Let it come, she said. We will be ready. She ended the call and walked back to her platform. The work was just beginning. Ships needed to be modified. Strategies needed to be developed. Species needed to learn to trust each other. But for the first time in millions of years, the galaxy had a chance, and humanity would lead them to victory, or they would all die trying. 3 months passed faster than anyone expected. 3 months of sleepless nights and impossible deadlines. 3 months of species learning to work together who had never exchanged a friendly word before. 3 months of building the largest fleet the galaxy had ever assembled. And now it was time. Lieutenant David Palmer stood on the observation deck of the flagship Prometheus, watching the armada gather. Human phase ships floated beside Vorkon dreadnoughts. Crystalline energy vessels pulsed next to Velian science cruisers. Over 12,000 ships from 93 different species filled the space around Earth's orbit. They had chosen Earth as the rallying point. It seemed fitting. The planet where humanity had grown. The planet where the seeds of the ancient defenders had finally bloomed. Ambassador Moore approached him. She looked older than she had 3 months ago. The weight of coordination, negotiation, and impossible decisions had left its mark. But her eyes remained sharp. Are you ready? She asked. David touched his jaw unconsciously, the place where Thrall had struck him. I have been thinking about that day in the council chamber, about how angry I was, about how much I wanted revenge. And now? Now I understand. The slap was not the important part. The important part was what came after. How we responded. How we chose mercy instead of murder. How we turned an enemy into an ally. Moore nodded. That is what makes humanity different, David, not our technology. Not our hidden strength. Our ability to forgive. Our ability to see potential instead of threat. The ship's intercom crackled. Admiral Stone's voice echoed through every corridor. All hands to battle stations. The Devourer has entered the system. David and Moore moved to the bridge. The main view screen showed the edge of the solar system, where something impossible was happening. Space itself was bending. Stars that had shone for billions of years flickered and died as the Devourer passed them. It was larger than anything they had imagined, a mass of pure darkness that stretched across millions of miles, consuming everything it touched. Captain Holt stood at the weapons station. Commander Thrall had taken a position beside him, advising on Vorkon combat tactics. The two warriors who had faced each other as enemies now planned together as brothers. It is bigger than the projections, Thrall said quietly. Fear makes everything look bigger, Holt replied. Focus on the mission. Admiral Stone took her command chair. All ships, this is Admiral Stone. We have trained for this moment. We have prepared for this moment. Today, we do not fight as separate species. We fight as one galaxy, one people, one family. She paused. Some of us will not survive this battle, but those who fall will be remembered. Not as humans or Vorkon or crystallines, as defenders, as heroes, as the ones who stood against the darkness when it mattered most. The fleet began to move. 12,000 ships accelerating toward something that had destroyed civilizations since before their stars had formed. The Oracle's voice echoed through every ship in the fleet. I will guide you. I carry the memories of the last battle against this enemy. I know its weaknesses. I know how to hurt it. Tell us, Stone said, the Devourer is not truly alive. It is a wound in reality, a tear between dimensions that feeds on matter and energy. To kill it, you must seal the wound. You must generate enough focused energy at its core to collapse the dimensional breach. How much energy? More than any single weapon can produce. But together, your combined fleets can generate enough. Every species brought something unique to this alliance. Now you must use all of it at once. Stone looked at her tactical display. The fleet had been organized into specific formations based on capability. Human phase ships would penetrate the Devourer's outer shell. Vorkon vessels would provide heavy fire support. Crystalline ships would channel and amplify energy. Every species had a role. All ships, Stone announced, execute pattern unity. May whatever gods you believe in watch over us all. The battle began. The Devourer did not wait passively. Tendrils of darkness lashed out, each one capable of crushing a capital ship. Energy pulses rippled through space, disrupting shields and frying electronics. It had faced defenders before. It knew how to kill. Human phase ships flickered between dimensions, dodging attacks that would have destroyed conventional vessels. They drove deep into the Devourer's mass, searching for the core that the Oracle had described. Vorkon dreadnoughts formed defensive. Lines, their heavy weapons creating barriers of fire that intercepted the darkness tendrils. Ships died, crews perished. But the lines held. David Palmer found himself on a shuttle heading toward the Devourer itself. He had not planned this. He had simply seen the opportunity and taken it. Ambassador Moore's shuttle, carrying specialized equipment that could map the creature's internal structure. Lieutenant Palmer. Moore's voice came through his helmet. What are you doing on this mission? Making sure you survive it, Ambassador. Someone has to watch your back. Moore laughed despite the chaos around them. You really are stubborn. I learned from the best. Their shuttle penetrated the Devourer's outer layer. Inside, reality itself seemed wrong. Geometry twisted in impossible directions. Light behaved in ways that violated physics. They were inside a wound between dimensions, a place that should not exist. The Oracle's voice guided them. Proceed toward the center. The breach point is there. Once you locate it, broadcast the coordinates to the fleet. They will do the rest. They flew deeper. The darkness pressed against their shields, trying to crush them, trying to consume them. Moore's equipment flickered and sparked as reality itself fought against their presence. Then they saw it. The core of the Devourer was a sphere of absolute nothing, not darkness, not emptiness, simply the absence of existence. It pulled at them, trying to drag them in, trying to erase them from reality. There, Moore whispered. That is the breach. David transmitted the coordinates. All ships, this is Lieutenant Palmer. Target coordinates locked. Fire everything you have. Now. 12,000 ships responded. Energy beams from every species converged on a single point in space. Human gravity weapons, Vorkon plasma cannons, crystalline focused light, Velian sonic disruptors. 100 different technologies developed independently across millions of years, all working together for the first time. The Devourer screamed. It was not a sound that could be heard, but every being in the fleet felt it. An ancient thing that had consumed countless civilizations was finally feeling pain. But it was not enough. The breach is still open, the Oracle announced. Energy levels insufficient. We need more. Stone checked her displays. The fleet had already committed everything. Ships were running on backup power. Weapons were overheating. They had nothing left to give. Then Commander Thrall spoke. I have something. He opened a channel to the Vorkan fleet. Every remaining dreadnought answered. Brothers, sisters, today we die well. Today we show the galaxy what Vorkon honor truly means. The Vorkon ships broke formation. They accelerated toward the Devourer's core. Their engines pushed beyond all safety limits. Each ship was a bomb now, its reactor deliberately overloading. Threll transmitted one final message to Captain Holt. Tell the human we are even now. Tell him the debt is paid. 1,500 Vorkon dreadnoughts detonated simultaneously inside the Devourer's core. The combined energy of their reactor explosions added to the focused beams from the remaining fleet. Reality itself shuddered. The breach began to close. David watched through the shuttle's viewport as the sphere of nothingness collapsed. The Devourer writhed and twisted, its darkness fragmenting, its tendrils dissolving into nothing. It was dying, and then it was gone. The space where it had existed was simply empty. Stars that had been swallowed reappeared, unchanged, as if they had never been touched. The wound between dimensions healed as if it had never opened. Silence fell across the fleet. Ships drifted, their crews struggling to understand what had happened. Then the cheering began. It started on one ship and spread to others. Species that had never spoken shouted celebration to each other. Warriors wept. Scientists laughed. Beings that had expected to die found themselves alive, victorious, saved by a unity they had never thought possible. Admiral Stone slumped in her chair. Fleet status report. 6,000 ships lost, Admiral, but the Devourer is gone. We won. Moore's voice came through the communication system. We are returning to the Prometheus. Lieutenant Palmer and I are safe. Stone smiled. Good. We have a lot of rebuilding to do. 1 month later, the Galactic Council convened for a special session. But this time, there was no throne for the High Counselor. There was no hierarchy based on strength or age. Every species sat as equals, arranged in a circle that had no head. Ambassador Moore stood at the center. Lieutenant Palmer stood beside her, his dress uniform decorated with medals from 30 different species. We gather today not to mourn, but to celebrate, Moore announced. 1,500 Vorkon ships sacrificed themselves to save us all. Their crews died as heroes. They will be remembered forever. A moment of silence filled the chamber. Then Moore continued. But we also gathered to begin something new. The alliance we formed to fight the Devourer does not need to end. The trust we built, the cooperation we achieved, can continue. We can become something greater than we ever were apart. High Counselor Varric, now simply Counselor Varric, rose from his seat. The old ways are dead. The Devourer killed them. What rises in their place is up to us. I propose a new charter, Moore said. Not a hierarchy of strong and weak, a true partnership, where every species contributes what it can, where every voice matters, where we face the future together. The vote was unanimous. As the session ended, David Palmer found Commander Threll waiting for him outside the chamber. The Vorkon warrior looked different now. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something quieter. Your father asked me to deliver a message, Threll said. He says he is proud of you. He says your mother would have been proud, too. David felt something catch in his throat. Thank you. Threll nodded. He started to walk away, then stopped. Lieutenant, that day in the chamber, when I struck you, I have thought about it every day since. So have I. If I had not done it, none of this would have happened. The alliance, the battle, the victory, it all started because I hit you. David smiled slightly. Are you saying your assault saved the galaxy? Threll's expression was unreadable. I am saying that sometimes the worst moments lead to the best outcomes. I am saying that I am grateful, not for what I did, for what you did afterward. You chose mercy. You gave me a chance to become something better. He placed his upper right hand over his chest, the Vorkon gesture of deepest respect. I will spend the rest of my life trying to deserve that chance. David returned the gesture as best he could. That is all any of us can do, Commander. That is all any of us can do. Thrall walked away. David watched him go, then turned to look at the stars through the chamber's window. Somewhere out there, new challenges waited. New enemies. New opportunities for alliance and growth. But humanity was ready. They had always been ready. They had simply been waiting for the galaxy to catch up. And now, together, there was nothing they could not face. The slap that started a war had ended something greater. It had ended the age of isolation. And it had begun the age of unity. The age of guardians, the age of Earth,